Good morning. Sorry you couldn't be there. Today you'll be working on the solving equations worksheet. I'm going to do a brief lesson here on a rule with parentheses that you will see in this problem that will apply to some of the problems on the worksheet. If you're looking at the worksheet, I will do every single problem in the first column, so number 1 and then straight down, and then your homework is to work on the rest, and Friday we will look at all of these problems. So what I want to emphasize on this right here is this idea of parentheses, which I know you've seen before, but coming to the idea that this is actually the exact same thing as this. And when we have parentheses within an equation, how can we solve accordingly? So if we look at this weight system, 8 equals 2x plus 6, that hopefully is straightforward for you. You have 8 on the left side, you have 2 x's, and you have 3 plus 3, which is 6. The other way we could look at it is we have, for this down here, we have 8 on the left-hand side, but then you can look at this as this is one whole term, which is x plus 3, and this is another one, and that's x plus 3. So there's two of them. There are two x plus 3's. So when we can group like this, and note if I wrote another x plus 3, then I would have 3 x plus 3's. So all that being said, when we are trying to work algebraically with solving this, let's look at the weight system and then look at the algebra. So one way we could do this is say, ooh, I'm going to divide both sides in half. If I divide 8 in half, that would give us 4. If I divided this in half, cut it in half, that gets rid of that, and I have x plus 3 on the right hand side, and on the left hand side I have equal to 4. And now if we subtract 3 from both sides, we get x equal to 1. Again, subtracting 3 from both sides, that's a minus 3 and a minus 3, and then we get x equal to 1. So what that means, coming back to the beginning, that when you have a number out front like this, you can divide by that number off the bat, and we get 4 equals x plus 3 because these twos cancel. And when we divide it in half, coming back to the beginning, when we divide in half, this cuts to 4, and then the right hand side gets cut in half. Those go away because we have half of what we did. So one procedure when you have a number out in front of the parentheses is divide both sides by that number. The second way we could go about solving is simply going from thinking about it being grouped to 2x plus 3 to just counting up what we have all together. X plus x is 2x, 3 plus 3 is 6, and we get 2x plus 6, like we talked about earlier. If we look at moving algebraically or numerically from here to here, what's happening is the 2 is being distributed and being multiplied by both terms. So that's exactly what you're going to do. A second way you could go about solving these equations that have parentheses with it, you could either 1, divide by the original number, or 2, distribute that number into both terms, and then you get to here, and then we just solve accordingly. So now let's move to some of these problems. I am going to do 1, 4, 7, and 10. You will do the rest except for number 9, the one with the fraction. We'll deal with that one later. Alright, so you can try drawing the weight system for these if you want. You don't have to though. So if we look here, equal sign, there's our dividing where we have the left hand side of the weight and the right hand side of the weight. So if we look at, we have a 10x and the 7x being subtracted off the bat. You can just think of that in the weight system like we start off with the weight system where we have 10 x's, say we have 10 x's here, and then we have a negative 7 x's here. And those would just simply combine for taking 7 x's away. You can think about that like 10 floats of x's and 7 anchors of x's is another conceptual way you can think about it. That's just simply 3x plus 18 equals 6. And then now we have 18 on one side, 6 on the other, so we're taking away that, if you think about it as a weight scale, we're taking away that 18. And now this is going to put us into negative numbers. That's okay. We could represent negative numbers on the weight scale. We just put negative, maybe the box instead of green, you make it red, right? So 6 minus 18, simply subtract those two and you get negative 12. When we think of the weight system, we have negative 12 on one side and we have 3 x's on the other, so we have to divide by 3. And that will give us x equals negative 12 divided by 3 is negative 4. 4, we have our first example with the parentheses. Remember, we have two options. We could either divide by that 4 or we can distribute it. I will do both. If I divide by 4, and that's like the first method that I showed before, you can rewind the video and watch it again if you need to. 8 divided by 4 equals 2, and then I'm left with what's inside parentheses, which is 3c plus 5, and then I solve for c, subtract 5 from both sides. So I have negative 3 equals 3c. I divide by 3, because that's the coefficient of c. It is also, if you think about it, we have a negative 3 on one side of the weight, we have 3 c's on the other, and we divide that negative 3 evenly among the c's, so that gives us c equals negative 1. Alright, so let's keep in mind again our answer is c equals negative 1. The other method is distributing in the 4. Again, it's up to you which method you prefer. Both of them are legitimate. There are pros and cons to both, which we can talk about later. So 12c plus 40 because I decided, or 20 because I subtract, multiply the 4 by the 3c and the 4 by the 5. So now I'm solving for c, so I subtract 12 from both sides, or 20, excuse me, from both sides, and it gives us negative 12 equals 12c, and we want to divide by the 12, and if you look, we once again get c equals negative 1. So either method works, depends on which one you prefer. Coming down to number 7, I will do, on this one, I will demonstrate the division example. Actually, I'll do both. Divide, because it's got a negative out front, so I'll show you what it looks like with the negative. So we cross those out, and we're left with what's inside the parentheses with the x minus 5. 8 divided by 6 is 3. We have a negative there, so it's negative 3. And we have a minus 5 on this side. We want to get rid of that, so we add it to the other side, and we get x equal to 2. Other method is distributing. Negative 6x plus 30 equals 18. Let me subtract 30. And negative 6x equals negative 12. Divide by negative 6, and we get x equals 2 once again. Now 10 is a little more challenging, because if you look, we have that 5x on the same side with the 6x plus 2. So if we have like our weight system, it's like we have an x into 2. Imagine like I have 6 of those grouped together, and then on top of it, or on this side as well, we have 5 x's, right? So if we distribute in to all this, we would have 6 x's and 12, and then we could take the 6 x's and the 5 x's and combine them. You could also take the 5x and move it to the other side. I think it'd be best if we took the 6 distributed to all of this and then combined it with the x's, so we get all the x's the same on the left-hand side. So yeah, that's my suggestion for sure, is just distribute the 6 in. This is where, depending on the equation and the setup, one method, distributing or dividing, may be more beneficial than the other. So we divided this whole equation on the left-hand side by 6. that wouldn't work for the 5x because that wouldn't be evenly divided up by 5 if you think about it in terms of the weight scale. If you're not seeing that, that's okay. We'll talk about this one more later. There's our equal sign. You draw the line if you want to kind of indicate the two sides of the weight, the weighting system. Now on the left hand side we have 6x's plus 5x's gives us 11. We still have that 12 over there equals 43. So think on the left hand side of the weight we have 11x's and 12. The right hand side we have 43. We're going to subtract 12 from both sides to get the x's by themselves because both have a 12 in common on both sides. Subtract those, that gives us 31. And at this point, even before this, we were just, or once we got to that step right before we subtracted 12, 11x plus 12, that's multi-step at that point. And so now we're going to divide by 11. It doesn't give us a whole number. I don't think I made any mistakes within this. But that's okay. You just raise 31 over 11 and that's it. Okay, best of luck on this, and I will see you all tomorrow.